This video is about the INTJ NI-FI loop. I actually just went through it not too long ago, and I'm gonna make this video because there's not really much articles or any type of videos out there talking about people who experienced it and what they went through. I hope that if you watch this video that you're not in the loop, but if you are in the loop, I hope that you find your way out. I hope that this video helps you, and if it doesn't, leave a comment and let's have a discussion. There shouldn't be a person out there that is lost, and I want to make sure that you are able to get out of it and become a better person. When I was younger, my loops were usually about social things, about relationships, about bonding with other people. Why is it that I always felt as if I couldn't connect with people? Why is it that even when I'm physically around people, I feel so distant? Why is it that I have all these people that actually want to spend time with me, but I always felt like, hey, what if I'm the burden and they're just saying that to be nice? Do I feel like I want to be around them? Do I want to spend my time with them? It's different. It's INTJ loops are completely different. We just don't know how we feel about things, and it goes and it just tangents and it spirals and it snowballs into so many different ways that things can turn out. And you've thought about every single solution, but you're not really sure how it's going to turn out. And because of that, you have paralysis because you're an INTJ and you have NI, and NI has to know what the possible outcomes are before you actually make any type of movement towards it. The term NI-FI loop refers to your first and third cognitive function. Your first cognitive function being introverted intuition, and your third cognitive function being introverted feeling. Essentially what you're doing is you're ignoring your second cognitive function, thinking or extroverted thinking. On a day-to-day basis, what I normally do is that whenever I'm tasked with a project, whenever I have to finish something that I put value on, nothing's going to stop me from completing that task. That's what extrovert thinking is. It's creating a system and making sure things in the external world are taken care of. But when I'm in my NI-FI loop, when I'm in that state of INTJ depression, essentially what I'm doing is I'm ignoring the actionable step, and I spend the entire time just thinking about it. The past 5 days of my life went by in the blink of an eye. I was not part of this world. I felt like I was this spiritual entity that had to come back to this reality to make sure that my cat was fed, to make sure that I was fed, to make sure that everyone or anything that I had to take care of was alive. This is the side of depression that most people don't talk about much. The side where you're still functional. You're not worried about ending your own life, but you're still in a state of mind, a state of being where you're just not sure what's going on, and you can't really operate outside of doing what's necessary to keep your body afloat. It's really interesting because the entire time I felt like my mind was blank, but at the same time I knew my subconscious was thinking about something. I knew that me playing video games, something that I could do without even thinking about anymore, I put myself in a position where I was actively doing something so that my conscious mind was focused on it. However, my subconscious had the ability to start thinking about what I actually cared about. I ignored everything during this time frame. As in, I put my phone on silent mode. I only checked it once a day, which is right before I went to sleep. I ignored every single text messages or any type of outreach that anyone sent me. I only responded to messages where I needed to respond to. Other messages, I just left it at read because I wasn't in the right mindset to respond to it. And the difference between thinking about it in when you're in a loop as opposed to when you're not in a loop is whenever I'm at my best, I don't really consider how I feel about the project. I don't really put my own value, my own core tenets to the outcome, because if it needs to get done, it needs to get done. But during my loop, it matters so much. How do I feel about this? Is this something that I find value in it? Is this something that I will be proud of whenever I do this or what I do? And it's so weird. It could be anything. It even applies to my hair. I should have gotten a haircut 3 weeks ago, but I didn't because I kept asking myself, John, how do you feel about having short hair? How do you feel about having long hair? Do you want it a certain style? And I couldn't figure out how I feel about it. So I just decided to leave it alone. I didn't TE. And the thing about myself, which seems true to most INTJs, is that I value time so much. Personally, I don't believe in an afterlife. I I don't believe that once we're done with this life that there's another life that we're going to start a new journey on. Because I believe that this is the only life that we have, it adds even more weight as to what I decide to do with my time in this very limited schedule. I refuse to be on my deathbed and regret things. I want to do everything that I can in order to live the best life that I can. But what does that mean? What constitutes the best life? There were two parts of my life that really brought in perspective just how fragile our lives are. The first time I spent 5 years in the military, I almost died multiple times. The second time was when the pandemic happened, when we were stuck at home, when we had to evaluate our life and our decisions. Isn't it crazy that it took a pandemic for a lot of the world to open up to start to realize just how fragile mortality is? I know that one of my triggers is that I quit my job recently. I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video. I actually made a different video for that. But essentially, I was getting paid really well doing what I actually kind of enjoyed doing. And then I didn't enjoy it anymore. And when I didn't enjoy it, that's when I started questioning things. That's when I started wondering, hey, is this really what you should be doing with your time, John? When you're 65 years old and when you're retiring, are you going to look back at your 30s, 40s, 50s, and early 60s and think, yeah, I made the best decision? The answer that I came up with after 3 years of dwelling on it is no. So I quit. Another question that kept popping in my mind is, John, are you running away from something? Is that the reason why you've moved so often recently? Is that why you decided to change your career? Is that why you decided to stay single? Is that the reason why you decided to get a pet? What are you afraid of? Why are you constantly running? In addition to that, the other questions that I kept asking is, am I happy? What will make me happy? What's the definition of happiness? And the odd thing is that I don't dwell in my past too often. Most of the time, I just think about the present and I think about the future. Whatever happened in the past is in the past. Yes, it developed my character into who I am today, but it's not going to affect who I am tomorrow. Only the present me can make that decision. And the worst part is it keeps going to that damn loop. When I start thinking about all the things I can do and want to do, then it goes to FI. How do I feel about it? How do I feel about all these options? How do I feel about this potential outcome that may potentially happen, may not happen? And it fucking sucks. I've never been very attuned with my emotions, and here I am trying to make decisions based off my emotions. Where the hell is the logical John that has brought me so far in life? Why am I defaulting to this emotional John that doesn't seem to get me anywhere? Before I start talking about the next part, I do want to say I 100% support therapy. Therapy is needed for a lot of people. Therapy does help. I know a lot of people who go through therapy and it's helped them tremendously. What I'm going to say is therapy has not helped me. And it's really difficult because if you're going to pay someone to listen to you, you want them to actually listen to you. But the 4 or 5 therapists that I've had throughout my entire life, I never felt that way. I just never felt heard. I understand that when you go to therapy, it's not necessarily that they're supposed to figure out a solution for you. That's what you have to figure out, and they're there to guide you. The thing is, the way that psychology or therapy is set up nowadays, it's for the majority and not for the selected few. I'm not saying I'm special in any way. I'm not saying that I'm too different from most people. What I am saying is whenever I'm in a session with one of my therapists, it just never feels like I'm being heard. It feels like they're just trying to check boxes to see where I land. And the problem with that is that's what NI is. I've done that my entire life to the point where I see where they keep jumping the gun. I see that, hey, you missed something completely critical and yet you made it to this step. No, no, no. You need to go back 2 or 3 steps because you're missing something completely wrong. And it sounds weird. It sounds as if I'm self medicating or self diagnosing myself. It sounds as if I feel like I know more than the therapists who've spent years training. And honestly, I am going to say I do. I do feel like I understand myself way more than they do. No one will understand me better than I do. And for them to say, hey, you need to work on this, when they haven't even asked me whether I worked on that yet, or even considered the fact that, hey, maybe that was part of something else that I discussed. And the therapists that I went to have all said the same thing. They didn't think I was depressed. They didn't think I had an issue. And the reason why they didn't think I had an issue is because I always had a solution to my problems. The thing is, I didn't know how I feel about the solutions. That's what modern day psychology thinks about depression. They think that you're depressed when you're incapable of doing things or you're incapable of figuring out how to get out of a hole. That's not how I feel depression. I feel depression when I don't know how I feel about things. And those answers that I get from them is always, well, you need to figure out what matters to you. My question is, how do I figure that out? I'm such a logical person that you can't just tell me to sit down and feel things and understand what I'm doing or understand how it relates to things. That's not how I operate. It never helped. Therapy just never helped. I felt lost. I felt like I couldn't relate to people, and I was always confused. Hey, how come I keep falling into this trap? How come it's something that I feel like I'm the only person that falls into? Why is it me? Like, why the fuck am I so weird? Why the fuck am I always so out of place? And that's where Myers-Briggs come in. The moment that I started reading about the INTJ again, the moment that I started actually investigating it and reading more about cognitive functions and in how things actually work, it felt nice to be part of a community, to be part of a group of people, knowing that, hey, you're not that different. Yes, you are different comparatively to the mass, but there are people out there that do understand you. And that's why I really appreciate people, or at least content creators, who are Myers-Briggs focused, because you are helping people out there that can't seem to find hope anywhere else. I do want to end this video on a more positive note as opposed to just being a downer the entire time. I do want to discuss kind of what I go through in order to get myself out of the loop. My loop typically lasts 5 days to a week, and then I'm able to operate again. Then it's John that has all these goals that's not going to stop until he accomplishes whatever he decides to do. Instead of going to therapy, what I have learned is that I'm able to dissect certain personality types from watching interviews and read from that person. Essentially, what I mean from that is that there are people out there who are very famous and they've written biographies or autobiographies or some type of journal that I can read in order to get in the mind of someone that thinks like me. To name a few people, Jay-Z, the first hip-hop's first billionaire, who has also signed Kanye West and Rihanna, who are both billionaires, married to Beyonce, whose net worth is $500 million. There's also Coach Phil Jackson, who was an NBA All-Star who won the NBA championship when he played, and then eventually got 10 more when he coached Michael Jordan in basketball, and also Kobe Bryant and Shaq. And one of the players that he coached, eventually Steve Kerr, who eventually became a championship winning coach as well, who now coaches the Golden State Warriors. Just reading their books and reading how they think and all the obstacles that they had to accomplish and the way that they word how they found their solutions, it's mind-blowing. Because if these people can find solutions in very dark times, why can't I? If they found how to do something when they had nothing, then why can't I do that? Jay-Z sold crack on the streets when he was 16 years old. He had nothing, yet he was able to get out of his struggles and eventually make something of himself. And that was the struggle that I was facing during my loop. It might sound like I'm going on a tangent talking about all these other INTJs who are famous. How it all ties together is that modern day psychology isn't built for INTJs. And for someone who's in an IFI loop, it's very difficult to find other people out there or any type of media that describes what you're going through and how people get out of it. I think it's personally weird that I have to search for INTJ authors, directors, producers, celebrities, or whatever, and then read about them in order to feel heard. That person isn't even listening to me. They're not even a therapist that's in a room or on the screen listening to my issues, but I'm still being heard. So that's where I'm at right now. I recently went through a loop. I'm out of it. That's why I'm making this video. I'm not really sure what the outcome or what I learned from that loop was, aside from the fact that I came out of my loop with some type of clarity, and that clarity isn't conscious. It's very subconscious. I know what I don't want to do, and because I know what I don't want to do, I'm going to spend my time doing the things that I do want to do. And my brain, my subconscious, my feelings, they've already thought about where they think I should be. And as long as I follow what I think I should do, it will eventually lead me to some sort of happiness, some sort of bliss. As an adult, someone who's lived multiple different lives throughout this single life, someone who's faced death so many times, I know that what I plan is not going to be where I end up. I'm going to have to pivot and see where that goes. I proactively pivot. That's why I have always been successful. Why change that now?